All right, so it's 5 o'clock, so let's call the meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Um, so, all right, so the first thing we need to do is take action on the minutes from November. Did everybody have a chance to take a look?
Yes.
Yep.
I move we accept the minutes from November as presented.
Second.
Great, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
This next agenda item, which is information coordination, Lisa asked to put this on here in reference to what are we doing with all the stuff we're getting, right, Lisa?
Correct. That's
Okay,
my,
did you have any thoughts to kick that off?
Well, I think we still have documents in the Concom office. You have documents. You sent a lot from Nature Conservancy that's not printed out. I think a first step would just be to look for duplications, see what, pare it down to what the single copies are, because I would imagine between the Concom and what the Land Trust has in a box, there's duplication, and probably from Nature Conservancy. I would be willing to do that. It would take me a while, but if it's helpful, I will be willing to do that if people have other suggestions. But mostly I want to just keep it moving forward.
well, the information that's in the Concom office, I think, needs to stay there. If we need to make copies, that's fine.
Okay,
But because
Because
it's part of our
Concom
public
documents.
record,
right.
especially if it was a notice of intent to treat the Phragmites and all that kind of stuff, that all has to stay. The notices of intent have to be kept forever.
Yeah. That's fine if they can be copied.
When Rich showed us a way of kind of keeping track of what we have and what we don't have. I think it was an Excel.
Yeah,
format.
so for the BNRC stuff that they gave me, I put into an Excel spreadsheet and sort of had like just basic columns describing what each were, or each item was. And then, I went into the process of either photographing or scanning the documents. And I have those. I don't have like physical.
Okay.
So I can either put it on the thumb drive and then we can put it in the physical stuff. But basically I have all that stuff sort of organized in a spreadsheet.
Okay.
And I think it would be nice because we have other documents that we've received in hard copy from different sources. I did get documents from Amy Rhodes, so in the other business thing, I'd like to talk about that. So particularly since we have research, final reports, things like that, where if we have a spreadsheet, if we use your spreadsheet, a single document that we can all contribute to, that's the issue. Where does this thing reside electronically so we can all contribute to it? Then we could have some chronology of studies that have been done, reports that we have with their, organized by year, if that's appropriate, or at least sortable by year, so we can find those things. I would find that very helpful because my physical folder is bulging, and so is my sort of email. Trying to track back to emails to find documents and this kind of thing is weird. So. Yeah.
So our challenge right now is that the town of Stockbridge has limited facilities for us to collaborate.
Right.
So
Right.
we were told
However-
you can only have one point of contact, but if you're gonna say however, what I was gonna suggest, and I don't know if this is legit, and I'm all for someone correcting me or saying we can't do it. I'm happy, I have a dedicated Google Drive space, and I can make us all members to that space.
Okay.
And we can have access to that spreadsheet, and it would just be us working on it for now, gathering information.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
once we've gathered the information and we need to make this public, we can then work with the town to put it somewhere.
Well, I thought we had
Or we
decided
put
to
it in
go
the
to the
library,
library.
go to the library, but
Yeah.
my sense is like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna print out the spreadsheet and then say, here it is, or?
No, I think in talking with
Talia.
Talia.
Yeah.
I think the plan is we would just start with the hard copies and they will, she's hoping that eventually they have an intern that can scan everything to something in the library, but they're not there yet. She's thinking hard copies to start.
So just going back to what I've done, because I didn't do the copies, I just scanned.
Yeah.
And I have everything digital, so we could theoretically print out everything that was scanned.
But first first eliminate the duplicates.
Duplicates, yeah.
Yeah, because I think
So-
there'll be a lot of duplicates.
All right, so what I can, so I'll share the spreadsheet, share it amongst all of us. I'll make a tweak of it just so that we know like where each thing is coming from.
Yeah.
So like, for example, I didn't put a column that just simply said, BNRC, box one, blah, blah, blah. So and then I'll add a couple columns just so that we know who did what.
Yeah.
And then we can follow suit with that stuff to add that stuff into the spreadsheet. Okay.
And then what we got from the Nature Conservancy can go in that.
Right, because I would add those documents to the spreadsheet, and then, I mean, many of those we have electronically. Some we can print out if that's necessary.
Right.
I guess I'm not getting too excited about printing them out if we all have a copy of them electronically.
So in that folder, if we have something that's electronic, we can also put all the scanned electronic stuff in there.
Okay.
And then make reference to it, and I'll show how I did it so that you can see how it works.
Okay.
And if you want to do that, I can explain.
Super.
I'll create a little README text that says how to link to the document in the Google Drive,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And then we may have to make some adaptations later on when we store this, if it's somewhere else other than Google Drive, so.
And if we have the spreadsheet, I can compare it to what's in the Concom.
Yeah.
See, and just write,
Yep.
put the documents down.
Kind of a
Okay.
fast way to do it, yeah. So
Okay.
Rich, is the Google Drive your personal, or is it through Rockwell, or is it through?
It's my personal.
Okay.
I could actually move it over to, the problem is that if I do it on Land Trust, it gets kind of quirky with like other people, because the Land Trust is supposed to be close to the Land Trust,
Yeah.
so. And it's just more of a technical thing, not a business thing. So I have a Google Drive that I have had since Google was created. And so we can store it there and we have ample space.
Okay. Do we have, so I think what we have to be careful in using this is, I don't think it's going to be considered deliberation, right? Because we're just individually going in and putting stuff in. I just want to make sure we're not breaking any open meeting laws, I guess, by doing this as well. I mean, we don't really, I think Google Drive is perfect. That's what I was going to suggest as well, especially because they have, if you hadn't already put everything in Excel, Google Sheets is very similar to Excel and very user friendly. I actually think in a lot of ways it's easier than Excel in some ways, but we can also import and export and everything in and out of Google, which is quite convenient.
I think if push came to shove and someone said, I want to see this, I have a right to it, and we're not done yet, I can still make a facility to make that available with the disclaimer that it's not ready for prime time and that we're in the process of assembling all this digitally.
Yeah.
Information is not subject to the open meeting law. So if you are simply transmitting information with no comment and no response required, then you're not in violation of the open meeting law.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. I think that's a great idea to have. I mean, if the town can't give us a repository, we've got to figure out our own repository.
Yeah, let's just do that and we'll work on getting it all done and we can use it as our ongoing work place.
Yeah.
And that periodically, if the town needs it somewhere, we can give them a copy and they can put it on there. We can say, here you go, you figure out where you want to put it.
Because my sense is too, nobody's read all this. Like you haven't read all those. I haven't read all the Nature Conservancy.
No.
I've read all the BNRC ones because they're all like, letters. The stuff that I have is really just like the formation of what is now the Kampoosa bog in terms of a legal entity.
Okay.
And so it's like all the different, people donating their property or acquiring the property, and some, BNRC getting this property and that. So it's just that.
These two, Concom and Nature Conservancy are more management and treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I haven't read it all.
And I think anything that the land trust has is not really dynamically different than what the Concom has, just because.
Well, the Concom is mostly management.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, the stuff that we have, I think we got copies from the Concom. Because it's like all this, it's all the stuff shortly before it became an ACEC. It's got the document that's the ACEC document, and then there's like a handful of like references to management stuff.
Okay.
But I believe it's all stuff that we just got CC'd on. So it's not anything,
And all the minutes.
Profound.
Concom has all the minutes from the previous commission too.
We do?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You have a lot of.
How clever of us.
I don't know if it's everything, but there's a lot.
It's probably, I took it out of my file cabinet at home and brought it down and said, here.
But I think historically, that's important information.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, some of the documents are 50 pages long, right? So it's hard to like read through everything for sure.
Right.
Okay, so Rich, do we need to tell you which email address we want, or
I was just gonna use, should we be, to keep things kind of legitimate with the town, should we just be creating accounts using our town email address, or should we just be using our regular email addresses?
I think.
I'd prefer the town one just because my regular email address is already
So,
tied.
Yeah, so I'll just add everyone, I'll create a folder, I'll add everyone with their town email addresses. And then you'll just have to go in and do what you need to do in Google to then be able to access it. And you'll all be set up as editors so that you can, and I'll get the spreadsheet, I'll add a little thing in to say, here's the folder with all, like a little readme document that just says, this is the spreadsheet, this is the folder with all the scans. And then this is how you link to the scans into the spreadsheet.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's great.
just nudge me because it's,
Well, after the holidays,
Yeah.
there's
just
not
keep
a rush.
nudging, yeah.
There's
So-
not a rush. We're not gonna.
We'll nudge you in the new year. Okay, the next one is the Massachusetts prohibitive plant list / invasives. This is just an idea that I had. I've been poking around well, let me back up. I think I realized after last month's meeting, it's going to be time, it's going to take a while before we're able to, I think, directly impact invasives within the ACEC itself. And I was trying to think, is there a way that we can, looking at our mission statement and our vision statement, mostly the mission statement, education is a big part of that. And I was thinking that if I lived in the ACEC, I got the first communication from us saying, hey, we exist. But there wasn't really more beyond that other than this is when we meet. And if you want to come and say hi, please do. So I was looking up what kind of tools the Commonwealth has for residents regarding invasive plant species. And frankly, they don't really have very many user-friendly documents. There's a lot of lists of Latin names and then the common name with links to other websites like, the Lady Bird Johnson Botanical Garden or whatever, where you can read about these different plants, but there isn't really anything visual. And I guess I was interested in maybe informing those residents of the ACEC and the abutters of what invasive plants look like, possibly how to remove them, which I know starts to get sticky because removal, you've got to do it the right way or she could create a problem, but also just kind of creating awareness of some of those plants. And interestingly, Massachusetts linked to a bunch of information that the state of Connecticut has, which are some pretty nice documents. I want to try to share my screen. I had brought hard copies, but of course I'm not there.
There are books and pamphlets on invasive species in Massachusetts.
Okay. Hard to mail a book to people.
Yeah.
So, and I was also thinking that maybe it makes more sense. All right, is that sharing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so this is an example of the one from Connecticut. Actually, I found this on the Connecticut website. It was actually a federal document that was created by sorry, I'm gonna scroll up. US Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife. So what
So,
you have, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna get to the page. What was your question?
no, go ahead, finish up. And
Oh,
then
okay. So if you look at this page, they have the burning bush here, which is all over the place in Stockbridge. I see it in, people's yards, there's hedges, but unfortunately, it's one of these invasives that escapes and then kind of takes over the understory of the forest, just like Japanese barberry or bayberry, or I always confuse those two. So they give
Barberry.
Barberry.
barberry. Okay, thanks. So they gave some examples: bayberry, which is native; summer sweet, a lot of people call it plethora; high bush blueberry; red chokeberry; fothergilla. So they give a lot of options of plants that could replace those. And I'm not saying that I want to get into landscaping guides for people in this area. And maybe this isn't exactly the right document or the right approach, but I'd personally like to explore a little bit more of I guess a guidebook is too strong of a word, but something that can inform the people that live there about Asian bittersweet vine and kiwi vine and burning bush and Japanese whatever and Chinese honeysuckle. There's so many things. We don't know exactly what's in Kampoosa right now, because I don't think anybody's really been keeping track of it for a while. But it isn't just about what's happening in the wetlands. We also have, forests and all sorts of areas where it's not just Phragmites that could be an issue. So I'm just throwing that out there as something that I think might be a good next step to inform residents about. But I wanted to get your opinion, especially because a couple of you are on Concom. I found that being on Lake Drive when I was the president, I got a lot of questions about plants. Which plants can we put in? Which plants can't we put in? And I'm a big gardener. So part of the reason they were asking me is just they take a look at my house and they see I have very, very little lawn, and which is intentional. I've taken over the lawn over the years, and I have a very deep buffer zone between my house and the lake of many, many, many shrubs and plants that I've put in. And, I gave people a few thoughts and ideas, but mostly I just created my own email that I just email out to a resident whenever anybody asks me. I think people are seeking information.
So one response is a town meeting last year, the Agriculture and Forestry Commission made hundreds of copies of invasive species, and they all went. People were really interested in taking them. We didn't include, what to replace them with or what to do about them, but we did identify them, and it came from UPenn or. I don't
We
know.
have a list of invasive species and what you might want to replace them with
Yeah.
somewhere.
But
Who's
my
the
concern-
conservation was, or?
Yeah, I can't put my brain on it right this minute, but I know that there are documents.
one concern I would have is if it goes out to people in the ACAC, I would want to be really clear that people shouldn't just go out there and start spraying things with rodeo and using herbicides if it is a wetland.
Right.
And so we got to be really
I think,
careful.
yeah, I was just gonna say that maybe rather than encouraging them to remove them, at least at this point, it's just simply to have them contribute to creating an inventory of what they're seeing and what they, even if they suspect and they don't know for sure, is to be able to just simply, articulate, I've seen this, near my yard, would this be, and maybe people will do it, maybe they won't do it, but I think that's a better starting point, is to educate people as to what are the invasives, and then if they want to not regulate, but identify what plants might be in their domain that could be invasives. And, the thing I was just gonna say is that the ACEC, just based on the stuff that I was just reviewing with respect to the problem with the propane facility. It's like I was really like, there's so many houses and properties that exist within the ACEC that obviously existed well before it was designated as an ACEC. So there's a lot of properties with landscaping and stuff like that that we should be reaching out to. So,
Well, I mean, I guess for me, some of it was, here is the invasive. I mean, here's another example. This is what I was bringing in person. I'm just going to hold it up. This is also from Connecticut, where they had garlic mustard at all the different stages.
Yeah.
Then it also talks about how to remove it, why it's bad, etc. So maybe it isn't about, here's how you replace the shiny buckthorn or whatever that plant is called. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is when you do want to remove some of these plants, like I had a bunch of glossy buckthorn on my property when I bought it in 2009, and all I did was cut everything to the ground. And they came back a couple of years in a row, but on year 3, when I cut it to the ground, it was dead. And then I could easily pull that up and put in a whole bunch of winterberry instead. So I think the point about making sure people aren't spraying or doing something that is perhaps even more harmful is a good point. So maybe I'm just trying to go after education somehow. So maybe it's, if you have this is what you shouldn't do. I think that when we tell people you can't do this, but we don't give them an alternative, it kind of stops some people in their tracks. They're like, well, then what do I do with that information? I like the idea of an inventory. I don't believe, we probably won't get a lot of participation, but there might be some people that would be like, oh, I know all the plants on my property. Here you go.
Well, there's like the top 10 hit list, with buckthorn and barberry and bittersweet, honeysuckle and multiflora rose and all of those that are the ones that most people are going to see on their property and want to get rid of. If the plants are close to a resource area that's within 200 feet, then they do have to come to the Concom before they start messing around.
Yeah.
So we can't just tell them, yeah, you should get rid of it. Now, the garlic mustard doesn't grow, generally speaking, near a wetland, but it's easy to get rid of. You just pull it up, and you pull it up for a couple of years and it's gone. So
7, 8, 10 years. Yeah. But yeah.
But things like barberry and buckthorn are particularly hardy.
Yeah.
And the buckthorn sends out poison through its roots that affects the plants around it, and that makes it particularly difficult.
Yeah, like English ivy, it's an alleliopath, so it's poisoning everything else around it. So, all right, maybe I will noodle on this a little bit longer. I think you guys are all bringing up really good points. I just, I think my concern is we just don't even know what's in the ACEC, and the timeline to tackle it is going to be slow. So what we can do is influence the people that live there, the citizens who own the properties there. I've been looking into other things like there are other municipalities that are paying people to get rid of their lawn. They pay like $1 a square foot if you get rid of your lawn and convert it over to natural native plants instead. There's cost sharing exercises for people who have a whole entire hedge of burning bush that should be pulled out, and the municipality comes in and says, we'll share the cost of doing that with you if you put in native plants. So trying to just think about maybe other ways to make an impact. And I don't know what those answers are. I felt a little bit discouraged after the last meeting, to be frank.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you as a landowner in the ACEC with acres, literally acres of Phragmites, it is so beyond my capability to deal with.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
The barberry, the honeysuckle, the buckthorn, the multiflora rose, the garlic mustard, I can deal with. But the acres of Phragmites are daunting, to say the least. I don't have any idea how we would get rid of that.
And I do think the Phragmites, when and if we do target this, the Phragmites, I think, is really the most important.
And of course, my property is the headwaters.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to go out there and go whoosh with a magic wand and get rid of it, but I have neither the physical or the financial resources to do that.
Well, in Phragmites grow in wetlands, and we know that this whole area is not all, I'm using wetlands as a really general term. We know the whole area is not all wetlands. Like Rich said, there's lawns and kind of regular, sort of suburban looking homes with regular suburban looking landscaping
But
around.
isn't the fen, my impression was the actual fen is where most of the Phragmites is. I could be wrong.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, there are probably homeowners that,
The vast majority is in the fen, yeah.
yeah.
I don't know that it's exclusively.
No,
there,
no, I
though.
don't think
That's- yeah.
exclusively.
No, Heron Pond has a whole
Heron Pond's horrible, yes,
huge.
yeah.
So on a positive note, maybe, Micah Jancy, who was the volunteer coordinator for Native Plant Trust, who does the rare species, looks at the rare species in Kampoosa, is very responsive. I've been a volunteer a long time, and he's really good, and he gets right back to you. He just moved to Division of Fish and Wildlife, so I thought I would wait till after the holidays and let him get settled in his new job and see if there's any way he can help us, because he's someone that I think would return our calls and would, knows this property and would be interested. So after the holidays, I thought I would reach out to him.
Well, I spoke to Bob Jones, and he said that he had passed along our request for participation from Lee to their Conservation Commission. He was under the impression that they had responded, but they have not. So I urged him to urge them to respond again. So he's very interested in this project and said that they were as well. So, we would have support from them, I think.
So, Laura, in response to you, I would say this. I'm highly interested in this topic and what you're talking about, this as education, because in some ways, regardless of the ACEC, there is benefit to Stockbridge at the people's individual decision-making about the plants that they put on their property and how much lawn they have and how water moves through their property and all these things. I mean, these are all really important things. And here and there have been little attempts to do something. I would be happy to participate in a subcommittee of this committee to work on the kind of thing that you're talking about and figure out where to start and provide pictures, this is what it looks like in all seasons. If you want to remove it, mechanically, this is how you can remove it mechanically. Whatever here is an array of plants that would be excellent native substitutes for this thing. I would be happy to work on such a committee. So if you're interested and you want to do that as a subcommittee, I'm in.
You might want to talk to Breege McCracken. She's good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Brisha's done most of the work on my property. I know her well. And then before that, I knew her when she was at Project Native. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm self-taught, but I'm a good researcher. And I just thought it was really interesting that Connecticut was loaded up with a lot of information and the Massachusetts state website was not, I just thought that was very interesting. Connecticut has some really great visuals as opposed to just a list. Okay, Louise, you're on. We'll
I
tackle
think
it.
it's a great idea just from the perspective of outreach, of getting people aware.
Yeah.
I mean, like if this in any way, even if it's a broad education opportunity to get people aware of this and what to do.
Yeah.
And that connects it back to the Kampoosa Bog, and that builds awareness and understanding and education around that and why it's important,
Yeah.
then even though we're looking at, initially the conversation was specifically about the bog, if we get people just building this awareness and enthusiasm for doing it,
Yeah,
and then connecting it back to the bog, then, it might be easier to get other things going that are more bog specific.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
I was
And
just
also-
talking with a friend of ours last night, and they live in Richmond, and they're now in Pittsfield, or Lanesboro. But they have a bank, for example, that they were mowing. But it's a steep bank and it's difficult. And so they're digging it up and they're planting a wildflower garden. I mean, I think these are things that people think about, as you were saying with landscaping, that, gosh, I don't really want to have to mow 5 acres of lawn. But if I could plant this in some way to make it not only be a pollinator garden, but also pretty and cutting garden and that kind of thing, I think people would be receptive to that, if only just to save themselves some work.
Yeah, I think there's some broad themes, right? You know, you can have just as beautiful of a garden with, or a whatever, an area around your home using native plants. And when I say native, I mean local. I don't mean native to New Mexico. I mean native to this county and this area. So local plants, it can be just as beautiful as having a whole bunch of things from China and the Middle East in your yard. But I think, so I do feel like there's some overarching themes that can help prevent erosion. It's more resilient to climate change. You don't have to water, you don't have to mow as much, et cetera. So, but then I think getting really specific would help. And what I like about this whole thing is it actually has broader reach than just people near the ACEC. It's really for the whole town, frankly.
I would be fond of the idea of also, like, when we speak of indigenous, I'll say indigenous plants or plants used by the indigenous people to, as long as they're not ones that might, because there are a few that kind of fall in between, but just to kind of encourage that, I think would be kind of nice. I mean, where I live, I always thought these things were invasive weeds and then realized, oh no, these are actually important,
The other thing you have to
plants that
remember
are-
too is if you look at a book that's supposed to cover Massachusetts, it isn't necessarily the Berkshires.
Right,
Correct. That's why I'm saying local,
right. Yeah,
but indigenous also, sure.
sure.
Okay. All right, great. So the next thing was also my agenda item, available land in the ACEC. I'm just wondering if there's any land available that we could buy, not like the 6 of us, but that is just enough more land that could be put into conservation. I'm not saying we're going to answer this question right now, but I wanted to kind of plant the seed. If there's anything we hear about, I think that could be just another initiative that we would be able to take on. I don't know, because it does seem like there could maybe be grants out there for that kind of thing.
There
was-
there was a property, but I think it got sold. on
Yeah, we
Rattlesnake.
just lost a good property.
I
Yeah,
remember. Yeah, I'm aware.
So,
Yes.
because the land trust got in there too late by the time we tried to,
So what's
on
the,
Rattlesnake at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that we were like trying to help, but then
really?
they moved in real quick.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So what's the process? I mean, how does the land trust become aware of what's for sale?
We found out really late in the game, and there was a person who wanted to try to, and he wasn't even a resident. He was a person who comes here like 3 times a year, lives on the Cape, and he was looking to buy it and then gift it to the land trust or somebody. And we were trying to move that along, and then whomever bought it basically, did the old Godfather and came up with an offer that no one could refuse, and it was gone.
And now we have swimming pools.
Yeah, so it was, and we're seeing a few of those properties, not even in Kampoosa, like all over Stockbridge, that we're just trying to get in there and quickly.
There's one, the 5A Church Street.
Yeah, that's the other one and that's the same person who's looking to acquire it, that's from Cape Cod. Is like, I don't know what his,
That's the one with the endangered species?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
lobelia.
yeah. So we're
Tom's.
looking,
Favorite plants. Oh, love them.
so we're working on those like that, and there's a few others. that are coming up quickly.
Okay.
So, but my question is, does anyone like scope out what becomes available in Stockbridge?
The land trust will constantly look to see what's for sale,
Great.
or if there are properties that aren't for sale, that aren't being, like, they could be stuck in estates or whatever, and we monitor those.
Great.
And sometimes we'll actually make active inquiries. And sometimes we get the none of your business responses, and then other times we're like, oh, I didn't know.
Okay,
And then,
good.
so,
Well, it's too bad because I think Dr. Goldberg would have been interested in doing a conservation thing on the one on Old 13 Rattlesnake.
yeah,
Because that was, he had purchased it from Carol Owens. And the idea at that point was that it was too wet to build on.
right.
And he was gonna just keep it, but.
And they had
then he
like a
sold
really
it.
weird kind of
I don't know what-
frontage to Rattlesnake, right? It was like a weird
Yeah,
narrow
yeah.
slit, yeah. So, I mean, that's what we're finding is like, there's always this like weird thing, like the 5A North Church, like if you want to develop it, you gotta come in Church Street, North Church, and you need to put a significant investment to,
And it's a
Get in
river
there.
crossing,
right.
yeah.
So it's not an easy fix. And some people don't pay attention to that thing, and then they can get fined, you know, so that's, what's great about that particular property right now is that that's what's holding up anybody who might want to develop that land, is knowing the amount of investment that needs to go in to make that whole, to be able to develop
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah,
And it's protected too, right?
Well, the other half, most of it is on the other side of that, that's protected in wetlands and all that stuff, and it's,
and that's always appealing when it's contiguous too.
Okay, well, it sounds like other organizations are looking into this. Great.
I mean, I'd be happy to pass along when we get inquiries about stuff that's specific to Kampoosa. I mean, right now, everything's kind of like, you know, up by Lennox and over by West Stockbridge and all in these weird places, and so.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like little parcels around the bowl and stuff too, at least on the Lake Drive side.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The next thing I had was just to confirm upcoming meetings. I think we actually already confirmed March 18th. But April 15th, May 20th, and June 17th. I know this is so far away.
Is June?
April 15th is Patriots Day this year.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is June 17th when June 16th is celebrated? If it's a Monday?
Juneteenth?
Juneteenth?
Which is the 19th. I think,
Well, then 19th is 2 days later. I don't, how would
and
I
I think
find
it's
out?
celebrated on the
It's on the
19th. It's not one of those that moves around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the
I know
day
in
that-
New York,
Yeah.
the schools are out, they're out on the 19th. And if it was on a
Right.
weekend, they just be off.
Yeah.
Okay. So Patriots Day is April 15th. Okay. So,
It'd have to be.
because then the 22nd is the day, is that the day after Easter?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
And is that the
Easter.
third?
No, Easter's the 1st of April. Easter's the last day of March. It's. All right, so then maybe instead of the 15th, it should be the April 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then May 20th and then 6/17. Okay, fine. All right, our next meeting is January 22nd. And then after that, the next meeting is February 26th. Do we have anybody else on besides me?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so we don't have any public. comment.
Well, I was gonna bring up a couple things.
Okay,
It's like, you know, so one, just to, earlier, right after we got the calls for agenda and then I didn't get it in on time. I wanted to let everyone know that, Nick Fretzel, who did our drone photography, is now branching out and doing, scanning, 3D scanning of land. And he decided to go out and do Kampoosa Bog, like the proper, not necessarily the whole ACEC, So.
Yeah, because when I was looking at it, and I looked at it quite extensively to see what was going on, and my house wasn't there, so.
Yeah.
It seemed like. it
So
was quite a
I mean,
while
I think
ago.
he was mostly just playing around with it, but he's like, here, if you guys need this and it's useful, or if you want me to go back and do it again, but he was like, this is yours and you can have it. And so I shared the link. When you go to that link, you need to use a Chrome browser. And then, did we just lose Laura?
I would like to see something a little closer. Yes, we did.
Okay, oh, here she is.
I'd like to see something a little, can he
Yes.
send his drone down lower?
So if you go in, you can get,
Because then it gets
you have to
foggy.
wait for it to load up. It takes a while for it to load up.
I don't know, I didn't feel like could see anything of any particular, in any kind of clarity when I was looking at it. And I
So
spent a
it-
lot of time looking at it.
Well, I think we need to provide, I mean, like he just went out at a specific
Yeah.
time frame, which might not have been the best time for him to do it. But you can put it into HD form and then it takes a long time to load because there's something like over 1,000 photos. And everything's tied to topography. But, it may or may not be useful, at least this one may not be useful, but
Well, it would be useful if we had someone who could tell us what the species were.
sure.
No, I
mean,
know, it's a lot
yeah.
of zones.
But I mean, if you go in and look at, like the photos, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm still playing around with this, but you can actually go in and look at a photo, like this is the photo detail of something. So if you're looking at something and you're kind of wondering what it is that you're trying to look at, you can go in and, see now how to get out of this, I don't know. So, here we go. So you can find something that you want to go into and then hit the HD and it will show you the high definition photograph of that particular area. And that's about 100 feet above the land. So I'd be happy to, I mean, like, it might not hurt to maybe have Nick come in at a future meeting and explain to us what he's done and how it works. But, this was exactly what I was trying to do with the previous one, and this one he did in the span of an hour. And he just literally had the thing go over and take 1,000 photos, and then he mapped it to the terrain, and it did laser measurements on, like, you can find out, like, you can do topography, you can figure out like what the elevation is at any given place, stuff like that. So I thought this was really cool, and he was just willing to donate his time and resources to us for
Well,
this.
this
So,
resolution is great.
Yeah.
I couldn't get there. on
Yeah. So
I,
I'm-
it may depend on your monitor and, like how high def your monitor and what you're looking at it on. I mean, I'm able to zoom down and see, individual lily pads in the wall. So
Yeah.
I thought the definition was really excellent, but I have a new computer, so it's only.
So yeah, there we go. Now I can figure this out.
So
Right.
I think having Nick come to a future meeting would be great. Rich, would you be able to talk? I don't have his contact information. Would you be able to
Yeah.
talk to him, see if
Yeah. Cool.
if he can join us and just let me know and I'll put it on the agenda.
Yep.
But
Look at
I,
it again.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. I mean, and so like well, no, I thought I had made headway on this in the 5 seconds that I was looking at it, but anyway. But like, here's all the camera angles, all the camera photographs are these little blue dots. So, I'll get Nick and we'll have him sit down with us and if I can't get him to sit down at a time when we meet, I'll just do a Zoom meeting and I'll share the Zoom meeting and he can, in the Zoom meeting, he can explain what's going on. Okay?
yeah,
Okay. The other item that came up was in the passing of this week. I spoke to Patrick White, and he was like, should we consider expanding the Kampoosa Bog Committee to include Agawam Lake?
Yeah, I forgot to put that on the agenda.
And he keeps asking me about that, and I'm like, I don't know that it's a bad idea. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we're making incremental progress with Kampoosa. And, adding the lake in there could add, like, we'd happy to do it, but it might take some time to kind of do what we have to do, but I'm not gonna, I just said I would bring it to us to see if we wanted to consider expanding to include Agawam Lake, since that too is, a similar land body as Kampoosa Bog.
Yeah, it has, I mean, it has many of the same issues, but I think it dilutes what we're trying to, we're having enough trouble trying to focus in on what we're already doing without adding something to it.
I don't disagree with you on that,
Would be
yeah.
my thought.
That's
Yeah.
not an ACEC, is it?
Yeah, no,
No, it's not. It's just that there's similarities
Oh,
to
yeah, I
it, yeah.
know.
I mean, I don't disagree at all that there should be more oversight over Agawam, but I don't know that we're the ones that should do that.
And what would be the advantage? I know he talked about it when he came.
I think he was thinking more of like at the point where we're able to make more actionable steps towards things like, removal of invasives, then having both kind of documented, might create some economies in the costs associated with.
And certainly that follows from our conversation last week with Angela, when, she was like, the more benefits you can kind of gather together in a grant application,
Right.
the greater the chance of success. And so there's a lot to be said for including Agawam, but yeah.
And for my information, so who owns it now? The
Mass
town?
Wildlife.
Mass Wildlife, okay.
So-
And the town of Great Barrington?
No.
Just, it's all Mass Wildlife.
Well, Mercer owns the other properties. That's what's, Great Barrington. Mass Wildlife is actually in the process of purchasing the Mercer property, the 9 acres left in Stockbridge. And then the rest is Mass Wildlife. And then where it abuts to Fen Farm is now going to be the Stockbridge Muncie community.
Okay, because I would think if this commission thinks it's a good idea, it would be good to talk to Mass Wildlife and see if they think it's. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were going to ask Andrew Madden, is he Mass Wildlife?
Yes.
Yeah, you would ask him if he could be a special guest?
I haven't done it yet. December's
Yeah.
been a little too crazy, but it's on my list.
Okay, yeah,
But that could be one of the things we ask him, yeah.
yeah.
And it might be just more of like being able to, like they're gonna probably say, oh, we're okay. But it's more of like but it's just more of the ability to just sort of create these economies that might benefit us down the road.
Right.
I mean, I like Andrew a lot. He has some mixed opinions about me. I also think that there are mixed opinions about the efficacy of the state's stewardship on that property. And so there's a lot of like, I don't know, apprehension.
They're spread a little
Yeah,
thin, and
yeah.
the plans that they made and were not
Right.
carried through. So
Right.
that is
Yeah.
worrisome.
So it could be something where if he sees that there's a mutual benefit, that we can help with certain things, if so much as we can. And then we can gather information from them based on what they've done. That might help us, I don't know, so. But it could be a slow trot is what I'm gonna try to allude to. Slower trot than what we've been accustomed to. So that's all I'll say.
Do we know how they came to have that property?
Yes, the Swans sold it and the land trust helped negotiate it back in the mid-90s.
See, wow.
And the land trust stepped in to close the deal. Because it was, once again, it was like the Swans wanted more than what the appraised value was. And so the land trust stepped in to pay the difference.
Wow, okay.
I mean, it wasn't a huge amount, but it was still enough for the land trust to help step in.
I think we need more information on Agawam before I don't feel prepared to make this decision right now. I think we table it.
Sure, that's fine. I just wanted to,
Yeah, no, Patrick's brought it up to me a few times and then he brought it up in our meeting together, either the last meeting or 2 meetings ago in front of all of us. So, I understand his motivations for bringing it up for sure. But I think we can talk to Andrew about it. And I feel like I would like to familiarize myself a little bit more with Agawam. You know, I've driven by it for years, just wondering what the heck is that? There's a sign, wildlife management area, but I didn't really know what that meant. So,
yeah, they actually put that sign on the Mercer land, which was also, that created a bit of tension as well. So finally, we got them to buy the Mercer land and now everyone's happy, so.
They don't have to move the sign.
Now they'd have to move.
okay. All right, Louise, you wanted to mention Amy Rhodes?
Yeah, so she very, very kindly sent an enthusiastic email learning that the Kampoosa committee was back, you know, in some form. And she sent several documents, which I will forward on. But there, at least two are much more recent and kind of exciting. There is the Kampoosa Fen and Agawam Lake WMA Calcareous Fen Community Vegetation Survey from 2017, which is 102 pages long. Lots and lots of information there. And
I think that would have been the time that they were applying for
Yeah.
the vegetation removal, yeah.
Okay. And the Kampoosa Bog Water Quality and Vegetation Composition Review and Analysis, which Amy Rhodes led, and that was from March 2021. And then there's a hydrochemistry of Kampoosa Bog from 2008. And one of Amy Rhodes' students has written an honor thesis about storage and release of road salt pollution into Kampoosa and is trying to get that published. So we have 4 or 5, you know, very interesting documents to review. And they were, even though I didn't have time to even scan them effectively, I think that we'll find other people, information about other people in these documents who are doing things. Apparently there is a woman who is doing monthly data collection in Kampoosa for UMass Amherst.
That's what we really wanted to know if any of that was still ongoing. Great.
You know, so obviously
There's
it
so much
is.
going on.
Yeah,
So much
yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah, it is. So anyway, I'll send out those documents and
That's great.
and Amy's email so that everybody has
Yeah,
that.
it's so recent. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, great.
that's good.
So how did you leave it with her? Did you say, I'll, you know, let the committee know about this and we'll get back to you? Or did you talk about her coming into a meeting or?
I did not ask her about that because I felt like until I had some idea of what was in here, you know, I think she's a busy academic and I didn't want to, but she was super fast in responding, super friendly, could not have been nicer. So I feel like if we have, you know, serious questions that we'd like to put to her, I feel like she would be responsive. I hope so. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think we could have maybe a little field trip and accompany somebody when they're going to these little stations just to see what's going on.
Yeah, it also kind of makes me want to connect with research librarians at some of the universities like UMass Amherst, Smith College, and say, you know, what do you have about Kampoosa? You know, what are you aware of about Kampoosa? And just see, you know, what they can turn up that their own institutions have been producing.
That's a good point. I mean, Kampoosa is such a searchable word, so unique. It's easy to find stuff if you just look that word. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Does anybody have anything else? No? All right.
No.
Oh. Tucker's like,
Are we going home yet? All right, I move that we adjourn and have a, yes, okay.
all in favor? Aye. Great. All
All right.
right. Have a great
Merry
holiday.
Christmas and happy holidays, everybody.
Next year.